We're back on 88.7 KWDM The Point. I'm Ian Nelson alongside Johnny Reynolds and Cole Sunderman. We have another great episode of Before the Buzzer, your weekly sports show. It's going to be another good one, a big weekend slate of college hoops, a Friday night banger of high school hoops, and then a little news about the Pro Bowl that's not on the usual Sunday, but going to be on Tuesday. We'll start it all off, Johnny.
Well, we had a great Friday night. We were at Cold Iron Fieldhouse right here at Valley High, and we had two great games. Unfortunately, for Valley on the girls' side and the boys' side, they were just short. Centennial came prepared on both sides. The girls just seemed not at their best. Jenna Fuller injured, and the Jags with Beam were just able to get so many great points. They were on fire from beyond the arc. The Centennial Jaguars, for the girls, pick up a huge win.
Yeah, and in that game, it just felt like the girls were always there, but they were never quite able to get back over that hump. And they were playing great defense in that game. It was a great defensive battle. Both teams were very, very active on the defensive end, but in the end, Centennial came out on top, or was able to pull away at the end of that game, and man, they were two great games. It really sucks that for the Tigers, though, that both of them were not able to come out on the Tigers' side.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about the implications of that game, it was definitely huge. A 7 versus 12 matchup, and the Jaguars, that was a game that they were looking at probably for a while. They lost by 29 in December at their own court. They were able to come in against Valley and really rule that whole game. Seems like the Valley girls, Carrie Rose really couldn't get anything done, and she's a veteran for that team. And other girls had to step up, like, Tylee White, even Olivia Adams had to make a big fill-in role. So there was just not enough that could have been done to beat this Jaguars team, but they have a lot more to do. This team has beaten the Northwest Wolves, so the talent is definitely there.
Yeah, and you mentioned players like Tylee White. She went 2 for 10 on the night, and Olivia Adams 2 for 6, so not quite as low as Tylee White, but man, it just didn't feel like without Jenna Fuller or Tenley Utoff really being able to, like, obviously Jenna Fuller was out for this game, and then Utoff, another great three-point shooter, sitting around 50% on the year. She went 0 for 3, couldn't get anything going. So the Tigers in this game, they really needed someone to step up from 3, and they just weren't able to get it.
Yeah, just an update on the rankings. I believe the Tigers did fall a bit. Well, there's just a little bit of a issue on the rankings, but other than that, we'll get to the rankings in a second. On the boys' side, this was a game that the Tigers really needed to win just for their confidence themselves. They probably have the toughest schedule in the entire state, definitely within the CIML. They have important games coming up with Council Bluffs Lincoln and Des Moines Roosevelt, their last two out-of-conference playing games. But they looked sharp last night. A couple of good shots from Colton Remick, some other guys stepping up, but other than that, Centennial pulled away at the end, and Valley had a lead up to eight, I believe, maybe even 10 at some points. So it was a really unfortunate loss, but a spark was there for sure.
There was a spark to your mention, Johnny, and I mean, it wasn't. We've said this all season. Yes, this team lacks talent compared to other teams. We've seen that, but they're not talentless. They showed great promise in this game throughout it, and I mean, looking at some of these players, you have Tyree Williams Jr., who played awesome basketball. Also, Jaden Attaway was playing very good basketball. Keen Jorgensen, he struggled a little bit, but nearing the end of the game, he started to heat up a little bit. He was playing some great basketball. Also, their bigs were playing very well in that game, and it helped them a lot. It's just Anthony Centennial in that last 4 minutes, we mentioned it, that this game couldn't be a game of quarters, and that's what it turned out to be. It was all Valley it was all Anthony Centennial in the first quarter. Valley came back in the second quarter. then taking that through halftime, Valley super hot in the majority of that third quarter and took it to a tie going into the fourth quarter. And then it was back and forth the entire first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. And those last 4 minutes, Ankeny Centennial, they shot the ball very well and they pulled out of that game. And Valley, they really got to take this. They got to look at it and they got to go, okay, we can play defense. We can play offense. Now, if we can just tune that up a little bit, stay consistent, because there's a lot of times where they would go on a 1-2 minute scoring drought and it really hurt them. And they would also let teams just score on them 30 seconds in a row. It would just be steal, score against Valley. And so they have to stop that. And going into, like you mentioned, Johnny, these crucial games, it's going to be important to grab at least one win before the season ends, because if not, South State's just going to be really hard going into it with not a win, because once you feel that win, you know, okay, we know how to pull out a game in the end. If you can't do that going into playoffs, yeah, maybe you're not going to win a state championship, but you want to do well for yourself and for your confidence. So they got to pull out a win in these last couple of weeks.
For sure. And I remember one of you guys mentioned on the broadcast, like, this team really hasn't been in this close game situation very often, and it really felt like it did show. They were playing loose, they were playing free, all the way up until those last 4-ish minutes, like you mentioned, Ian, and then that's where they felt like they tightened up, and that's where Centennial was able to pull away. So I think this game really just came down to experience. Centennial's been in this spot a little bit more, and Valley they came prepared, but they just weren't able to finish it out.
Yeah, they will hit the road tomorrow against a conference rival, you could say, at Urbandale, 7:45, I believe 6:15 for the girls as well. So that's going to be an interesting game. Urbandale really stepped it up these last couple of years, brings in a lot of talent, and just the amount of guys they had returning this year really showed. They're kind of a bubble team entering sub-state. Another big win to mention in CIML is the Ankeny Hawks beating number 8 Linmar, I believe 72-51. That was a huge win for the Hawks. You know, kind of a mid-tier team this year, but that win against Linmar will definitely bump them up in the rankings, and we might see them in the top 10.
Yes, it will. Big 21-point win on your home court in front of your home crowd. That's how you do it. We all thought that it was going to be a closer game, but Ankeny just tore away with that one. You mentioned Urbandale against Valley. Urbandale, they're coming off of a home loss to Johnston on Friday night, 64-57. And this was a game, this was a week in the CIML, if you were a home team, except for Ankeny, you did not want to be the home team. 4 away wins. Johnston, big win over Urbandale at the Jayhawks. Waukee pulls off the upset against Dowling on the Maroons court, 49-45 in that one. And then Waukee Northwest, just another statement win in the CML, just continuing to show their top spot in that conference with a 33-point win on the road against Southeast Polk.
Not to mention, though, real quick, on Waukee Northwest did play a big game Saturday.
They did.
I believe it was a team from Wisconsin.
It was the number 2 team in the state of Wisconsin, I believe.
West Alice Central, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, it was a top 2 team in either
Wisconsin,
Nebraska or Wisconsin.
Yeah,
yes.
Wisconsin. Yeah, and that team is the team for Iowa State commit, 3-star commit Yusuf Gray. So he was able to put his skills on display. I believe he put up about 19 points. So he's legit, and it really was impressive to me that Northwest was able to hang with a team like that.
Yeah, absolutely. They come stomping down from Wisconsin, and yeah, like you mentioned, Cole, Northwest played a conference game the night before.
Right.
That's never easy coming into a team that's fresh, from Wisconsin, ready for this game, a little bit more prepared. And Northwest is still feeling, their legs from the night before, and that can really make an impact. But a 10-point loss, this Northwest team, I think, an early prediction here, this might be their year.
I wouldn't disagree. They've been flirting with it the last couple of years. I mean, they played Valley twice in where the Tigers eventually did get the win. They played them 3 years ago in the game that started the three-peat, and then last year to complete the three-peat, it was Valley versus Northwest, and Valley got a hold of it. The Wolves won't have to deal with Valley much this year if things don't take a turn the world upside down. And yeah, to your mention, Waukee Northwest, they're not opposed to playing teams from outside the state. They played Millard North earlier this year in the MLK Classic at the middle of January, where they sneaked out a win 70-68. That was in where the Council Bluffs Save Lincoln hosted a big tournament. And then, yes, this Wisconsin one. We got some great hoops starting to heat up with playoffs coming right before spring break, which is in just a month and a half now as we enter the month of February. Now we're going to move on. College hoops. It was some big games over the weekend, but we can't start anywhere except for Friday night. We were worried about high school basketball, but there were some big games going on. One ranked matchup, ranked on ranked, and then another one where it was a ranked against a strong team in the A10. We'll start with the ranked matchup. Michigan State, number 3, number 7, respectively. Looked like Michigan was going to run away with this one quickly. They had up to a 20-point lead at one point, leading 42-26 at halftime. And then here come the Spartans, started to roll early in the second half, and they cut that lead to a decent amount, and then Michigan was able to stay consistent in the back half of the second half and hold on to a 12-point, 83-71 win. Johnny, Cole, what are your thoughts on this game, quickly?
Well, it did feel like Michigan was in control pretty much all of this game. Michigan State made a run, took a 2-point lead with about 7 minutes to go. But Michigan really showed that they are the better team. And, you know, I think Michigan, they only have one loss, but they've looked a little shaky at times. But in this game, they just looked so dominant. They were in control, and they're one of the top national title contenders 100%.
Yeah, they look like a team to beat, just how they played. You know, no game is easy on the road in Michigan State.
Especially a rivalry game.
Yeah, East Lansing, never an easy place to win, and they're able to, you know, win well. Just played really good efficiency offensively, defensively as well. Obviously, Michigan State had a bit of a run, but you just got to close games with Big Ten play. It's not going to be pretty at all times, but they definitely shined Friday, and it's going to be special to see this team. I could definitely see them as a 1 seed coming into the tournament. Obviously, a lot of things matter based on Big Ten tournament play. So we will see on that. And another game I want to look out for Friday, I think we were all talking about it Wednesday, was a St. Louis-Dayton game and how well St. Louis played. They had a little bit of a celebration after that. Dayton's always a very good Atlantic 10 team, and they were able to pound them 102-71. Trey Green with St. Louis able to put up 23 points.
Yeah, back on staying on their home court after a lot of people were starting to question the Blue Devils after being on their own home court against George Washington and only pulling out a 3-point win. This one, staying on and playing a much better Dayton team, and they just took it to them with really no mercy at all. 102-71, 31-point win, and that's how you state your case. You're staying atop that A10, and really there's nobody in there looking in the rest of their playing for a little bit, nobody to challenge them. You got Loyola Chicago next, and then it's all going to amp up once we get into the end of February for that rematch against Dayton in Ohio at the end on the 24th. But yeah, St. Louis looking like a strong team, and I would even go to say potentially the best mid-major we have right now. I'm excluding Gonzaga and St. Mary's and all really. Because even though, yes, the Mountain West, it's a mid-major, but they're so good, it's hard to classify them as that. I know your thoughts, Johnny. You love that conference.
Oh, yeah, especially what Gonzaga has done in the West Coast Conference. They're always consistently great, as well as St. Mary's.
Yes, but yeah, St. Louis playing some great basketball. We'll get to Miami of Ohio, who attempted to keep their undefeated record this on Saturday. Looking at this Saturday slate, there are a lot of good ones. What's a game that caught your eye, boys?
Well, I think that this UCF Texas Tech game, it wasn't like the highest ranked game or anything. You obviously look at BYU Kansas as the marquee game of that Saturday, but this UCF Texas Tech game was really interesting to me because Texas Tech, they started out a little slow. They were a little shaky to start and at the start of the year, but then they beat Duke. They picked up a bunch of other big wins, and then UCF goes out and beats them. And UCF, they're 17-4. They've kind of come out of nowhere. They're legit. So they're just another team in this Big 12 that has popped up and is looking really good.
And I mean, for Texas Tech, you mentioned all of these big games that they're winning and looking so good in. But the second you take away JT Toppin, this team doesn't look as good as anything. And I mean, JT Toppin, he accounted for just about a third of the team's overall points with 27. Everybody else was just kind of struggling to be consistent in their shooting. Like Jalen Petty, who's a strong shooter for them, went 0 for 3 behind the arc, and everybody else kept shooting but couldn't make their baskets. And then you look at this UCF team, consistency around the board. Jordan Burks and Famous Folks both being the top two scorers, 17 and 21, and then John Bull with 14. This team really played very strong, consistent. 44 points in the first half, 44 in the second half. Just consistency around the block for UCF, and they're going to be a team to look out for in this Big 12 conference. Yes, Iowa State played very well against them, but this is going to be a team to look once you get into March. Once you look at that Big 12 tournament, I would like to see them just ball out, and I think they can.
I was looking at this Vanderbilt game. We haven't really talked much SEC, but Vanderbilt, they had a great streak going on for a while. They lost 3 straight to Texas, Florida, and Arkansas once ranked play really hit them. But they've been starting to get things together, picking up 3 straight wins against Mississippi State, Kentucky. And the game I was going to initially talk about was Ole Miss, where they pick up a 3-point win. Seems like they're getting things together. One of the better teams here in the SEC. But SEC is always so interesting how that, when you get into March, how that conference bracket works. It's always so close, so many sleeper teams. I think the SEC is going to be one of the most exciting conferences. Definitely not the most talented or skilled. I think the Big 12 and Big 10 is so much better now in basketball. But there's obviously going to be a good amount of teams that will head to the tournament. We could see some 2 seeds, 3 seeds out of these teams. So I think this Vanderbilt team, when they're hot, they get fresh, they're looking scary.
Yeah, they are. Rounding out the top 10, Arizona looking to stay undefeated, and they do, winning big on their rivals' court at Arizona State. 87-74, the Sun Devils having an off year once again. 11-11 on the year, 2-7 in the Big 12. Arizona on the other hand, number 1 in the country, 22-0, 9-0 in the Big 12. UConn also trying to stay hot, and they do, just walloping Creighton 85-58. UConn's the number 2 team in the country, and once we get into those late games, I can't wait. If we potentially get a UConn-Arizona matchup, that one will be electric. Duke also staying hot, number 4 in the country, 72-58. They roll at the Hokies. Virginia Tech just couldn't handle the speed and just good shooting out of Duke. Cameron Boozer just playing so well for the Blue Devils. Gonzaga, we mentioned them earlier, how they're just really staying atop the West Coast Conference at home against St. Mary's, who's been giving teams fight so far in that conference. Gonzaga handled it easily, 73-65, 10-0. In the West Coast, 22-1 on the season, number 6 in the country, could potentially start to move up soon. Houston also in that top 10 over Cincinnati at home. Big win, 76-54, 22-point win, as they're 7-1 in the Big 12, 19-2, and tied for second in the Big 12 as Arizona continues to be on top. But the big game, the marquee matchup of Saturday, we'll touch on it a little bit. Number 13 BYU, number 14 Kansas. It looked like Kansas was going to run away with this one, similar to that Michigan State game. Kansas up 53-33 at halftime, 20-point lead. And then here come the Cougars. They outscore the Jayhawks by 12 in the second half and fall short 82-90. What stood out to you in this game?
Well, in this game, BYU, it doesn't seem like they're playing a full 40 minutes. They don't seem to be kicking it into that gear that we all know that they have. We all know that they can compete with top teams, but they just need to start out faster. Like we had the same complaints with Iowa State earlier in the year, where Iowa State was starting off so slow and getting themselves into a hole that they had to dig out, and they just weren't able to do it. And BYU's done that twice now with the Kansas and Arizona games. So BYU, they just have to start faster because I know that they can get going.
It was a great win for the Jayhawks, and they continue to improve and look like a strong team coming into February and March. But I want to shift gears towards some of the Iowa teams. There were some pretty good games on Saturday. Drake and UNI. Let's start off with UNI. They pick up a solid win against Evansville. They're finally getting back on track. They won 71-55. Obviously, Evansville is definitely towards the bottom of the conference, but UNI is kind of fighting for wins. They went on that long losing streak, but they beat a Murray State team last Saturday, and it seems like things are going positively besides that Southern Illinois loss Wednesday.
Yeah, coming off of that Southern Illinois loss, they really needed a big win, and that Evansville win is exactly what they needed. Moving on, Drake men's basketball, they had a marquee matchup of their own at home at the Knapp Center against the Braves of Bradley. The Bulldogs fell short in that one, 73-87. And, it's just showing how good Bradley is. They're really staying atop of the Missouri Valley Conference. And they're going to be a team that I really want to look out for because unless Drake can really start to get hot, Bradley's looking like a very strong team.
Yeah, Jalen Quinn for Drake, 32 points, went off. Didn't seem like he got much help on Saturday, so hopefully that team can kind of reshape together. They're still fighting in the middle of the Missouri Valley, but games are still to be won. It's going to be a tight conference all the way through, and there's still a lot to play for. They're going to play UNI here in a couple weeks, so that's going to be a really good game to highlight and watch out for.
Yeah, and then the next one, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Johnny, this is the game that you watched the most of. They took a huge win on the road on the West Coast against Oregon. The Ducks just couldn't handle the Hawks, and they win big, 84-66. What'd you like about this one, Johnny?
It's really great to see them going to the West Coast. They get that win. They just faced off USC last Wednesday, and that went down to the wire. But, yeah, it's really good to see them getting into the winning ways. Bennett Sturts, he was on fire, really carried that team with 32 points. And then they go into Washington on Wednesday, which is never going to be an easy game. It's kind of an evenly matched game, and it's going to be their second game on the West Coast, so I assume they're staying there right now. But yeah, that was a big win. Obviously, Oregon isn't where we thought they were going to be, but they continue to pick up wins when they need to.
Yes, they do. And then the last one in Iowa, the Iowa State Cyclones go on the road to the Octagon of Doom against Kansas State, and really the doom was on the Wildcats themselves as Iowa State brought the doom with a 95-61 win. It was dominance from the start, and they led at halftime by practically 30. It was a 29-point lead, 50-21. The Wildcats and P.J. Haggerty started to heat up. Haggerty really started to show his true self in that second half, but the Cyclones' defense is what stood out in that one, holding 2 of the 8 players that the Wildcats showed on the court scoreless, and the Cyclones only had 2 scoreless as well, but that's because they emptied their bench at the end of the game. Iowa State, they're just continuing to show how good of a team they are. This is a team that plays so well together. Joshua Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, Killian Torre, Taman Lipsey all accounted for double digits, with Jefferson and Momcilovic being the top two scorers. Momcilovic continuing to shoot the ball very well, 5 for 9 on the night. And he just has, they were talking about it in the broadcast, a universal green light wherever he has the ball. If he wants to shoot it, he's allowed to. And he was showing that, shooting some shots that I've never seen him shoot before, and he was making them very well. That mid-range shot that he loves to do is looking so nice. Jefferson underneath the basket, accounting for 8 rebounds, just so strong of a player. The Cyclones team is continuing to heat up after that 2-loss stretch from Kansas and Cincinnati, both road games. They're looking very strong in this one. 20-2, 7-12 in the Big 12. They're looking good.
Yeah, and now in the 3 of their last 4 games, they've won by 30 plus, and they're just at this point they're just rolling teams. They're getting off to fast starts, which at the start of conference play, that's really what Iowa State fans were worried about, and that ended up biting them in the butt in those 2 losses. And now finally they're just taking care of teams that they should take care of, and this is just a team that this is what should happen to a team like Kansas State. Kansas State isn't very good, and I just love seeing Iowa State beat Kansas State by this much, because I just despise Jerome Tang, and it's just so fun for Iowa State to beat Tang by so much.
Yeah, there was that little message from Tang, and I love the response back and just the way how they beat Kansas State. It's really great to see, even as an Iowa fan. You know, seeing that home state team win. Iowa State always such a successful basketball team, and they're going to continue their dominance through March, and then March Madness. But we had a great game. Illinois at Nebraska. Seems like Nebraska's at their downfall. Illinois gets a huge win in Lincoln.
Kind of looking like Iowa State a little bit. They had a marquee matchup last week against Michigan where they fall shortly, and then just lose another game where they very well could have won it against Illinois. We'll see if they can respond and pick up some key wins in the upcoming games. So yes, the Illini looking super strong, and they've kind of crept their way up the Big Ten. Like, yes, they were looking like a big top 25 team coming into the season, but really looked like they were going to be a team that stays in that 15 to 25, and they're now moving up inside the top 10, and they took Nebraska's ranking as the new AP has come out. They're now number 5, 19-3, 10-1 in the Big Ten. They're looking good. And
that's a big ranking jump, especially in the top 10.
Four placement jump in one of the most congested top 10s I have seen in recent history, with looking like each team in that top 4, top 6, top 7 range. They're just keep on winning, and that's what this Illinois team, Wagler, playing so strong with 28 points. He is playing some dominant shooting-wise, and this Illini team is going to be scary.
It's interesting. It's like in the AP top 25, UConn, they don't even do anything wrong. They beat Creighton like how they should, 85 to 58, but they actually drop a spot just on how well this top 5 really is. Michigan able to get a huge win against the Spartans, and they bump up to 2. So it's just kind of crazy how this is.
Yeah, and for Nebraska dropping out the top 5 clearly after an 0-2 week, but I'm really not concerned about them at all. Like, they lost very close to Michigan, and they were neck and neck with Illinois until about the 10-minute mark where Illinois started to pull away. And I think Nebraska has to win this upcoming game against Purdue. They have coming up, but to really show that they are one of the top teams in the country, but just sticking with Illinois and Michigan, who are very clear top 10 teams right now, and you can really put them wherever you want with, like you guys are saying, this top 10 is crazy, but Nebraska, they're for real. This is really all that I needed to see from them this week.
Yep. And quick just look back. Staying with this undefeated, Miami of Ohio stays undefeated, pick up a big win at home against the Huskies of Northern Illinois, 85-61. Nothing special in that one. They're just continuing their dominance in.
They finally get a win not within 2 scores.
Yeah,
though.
a bit. It was a good 20-point win. They're going on the road on Tuesday against the Buffaloes of Buffalo.
That's one I want to look out for, though, because that one was an overtime game not too long ago.
Buffalo's a very strong one. Looking at this slate, there's not many big games. There's no, in this Monday through Thursday slate, there's no ranked on ranked games except for tonight. Kansas taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech trying to respond after a loss against UCF. Kansas trying to just stay hot, now 11. They're continuing to move up after the initial early season falls after they took some big wins. But this Kansas-Texas Tech team so similar with really everything. Their shooters, they have some really good shooters, really good drivers as well. Both 16-5, both 6-2 in the Big 12, 11-13 Kansas-Texas Tech. That one will be a good game. Another matchup I want to look out for is in the Big 12. This Big 12 conference is just man eat man, and it always has been and will most likely always will be. UCF is a game I'm looking out for. Wednesday night, 6 o'clock at Houston, number 8 Houston. I know UCF isn't ranked. They very well could have been in that top 25 contention after getting a big win against Texas Tech. UCF, they're a very strong team. I would like to see how Houston respond. I expect Houston to win, but if things get sketchy, UCF, the Knights could get a big win in that one.
Yeah, for sure. And there's 2 very different ways that this game could go. UCF could shoot their way in this game. They're a very skilled team. They just haven't been able to put it together consistently, but you saw it against a team like Texas Tech where they were just able to get going. But this also could end up like the Iowa State game. Houston and Iowa State obviously are like carbon copies of each other and play a very similar style of basketball. So it'll just be interesting in that game to see how UCF can respond to that physical play of Houston, having already seen Iowa State.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of basketball and a lot of ground. There's not a whole lot of great games besides that Kansas and Texas Tech game. Obviously, a lot of mid-major importance. We see Gonzaga, Miami of Ohio play, and even St. Louis. So a lot of still important games surrounding the top 25. But let's switch gears towards the football side. We've talked a little bit about football last week, and we're looking into the Pro Bowl. It starts tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It's going to be super interesting. They have that flag football game. I don't really know if they're going to have those mini games again, but it looks like 7 p.m. will be the flag football game. They'll have a bunch of Super Bowl interviews, discussions, and whatnot. So I think it's going to be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
If you're just looking to watch something,
Uh-huh. And that feels like that was kind of the rationale when they put it on a Tuesday, because obviously it isn't going to get nearly as good of ratings as it would on a Sunday, but really nobody really cares about the Pro Bowl. Like I wasn't sitting around on Sunday and being like, man, I wish the Pro Bowl was on right now. Like there was so much other great stuff going on that really made me not care at all that the Pro Bowl wasn't going on. So I think putting it on a Tuesday is a good move because like you guys have said, like there's really not much going on this week in the sports world. So this Tuesday I think that's a good move, and I'm probably going to watch only because there's really nothing else going on.
Yeah, I mean, might have to flip between that St. Louis and
That's
Davidson
true.
game.
That's true.
And, we got Drake against Belmont. I'm definitely going to be looking throughout that one. But, yeah, really not much besides mid-major games Tuesday, which is really odd considering we always see Super Tuesday games. There's only three top 25 games, St. Louis, Miami of Ohio, and St. John's. So really not much. Probably one of the more or less.
Yeah, this is a very light week for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of more games in the next couple of days, mainly looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. the Pro Bowl game, but that's all alluding to next Sunday. Not this coming Sunday, the next one. Big Super Bowl matchup, Seahawks. The Seahawks and the Patriots. That's going to be a good one. We'll discuss that more next week. But this Friday we will cover the weekend slate for college basketball and high school hoops right here, 88.7 KWDN, The Point, fourth quarter Friday. But that's all we have for today on Before the Buzzer. Thank you all for listening. As always, make sure to keep tuning in to The Point and next Friday for fourth quarter Friday. But that's Johnny Reynolds, Cole Sunderman, and Ian Nelson signing off for today.